Welcome to Der Hair for Kids. Join us as we explore the fascinating lives of our Rabbeim. This episode is dedicated Le'ili Nishmas Harav HaChosid Harav HaTomim Rabbi Yechiel Doiv ben Rabbi Avraham Menachem Olav HaSholem Nelkin, in honor of his yahrzeit Chof Menachem Ov, dedicated by his family. In the previous episode, we discussed how the Maggid would send his Talmidim to spread the teachings of Chassidus, and how he would teach Gemara and Halacha to his Talmidim. In this episode, we will hear about what made the Maggid's davening and teaching Chassidus so special. To understand what the Maggid's davening was like, let's hear what the Alter Rebbe once said about Rosh Hashanah with his Rebbe, the Maggid. When I had the zchus, the merit, to learn in the Maggid's base medrash, I got to see how the Maggid conducted himself on Rosh Hashanah. The Maggid would daven mincha on Erev Rosh Hashanah for a very long time. He davened with a nigun his oirerus, a deep moving nigun that made a person want to become closer to Hashem. As he sang and cried, it sounded like he was saying goodbye to someone who he loved very much. The Maggid would say Tehillim with deep feeling from even before Yom Tov started until Ma'ariv on the first night of Rosh Hashanah. After that, the Maggid would spend a good few hours davening Ma'ariv, crying and pouring out his heart to Hashem. When he finally finished davening, the Maggid ate the Yom Tov meal, but he didn't say a single word the entire time. After the meal, the Maggid would cry as he said Kriyas Shema She'al Amita for hours. He would then continue to say Tehillim throughout the night. The Maggid had a friend. Let's call him Reb Arele. Reb Arele and the Maggid knew each other during the Maggid's younger years, when the Maggid did not yet know about Chassidus. Reb Arele knew a lot of Torah and Kabbalah. Years passed, and Reb Arele thought, I hear that my friend Reb Ber became a Talmid of the Baal Shem Tov. I wonder what he is up to these days. Let me go visit him. Reb Arele traveled to where the Maggid lived at the time, and he walked into the base medrash. He asked one of the people sitting there, Where can I find my old friend Reb Ber of Mezrich? Ah, Reb Ber! He's davening by the table over there. Reb Arele looked, and there he was, his old friend, only now he looked much older, totally engrossed in his davening. It's pretty late in the day to still be davening. I'm sure he'll finish soon. So Reb Arele waited, and waited, and waited. Reb Ber is davening for hours on end. I've never seen anything like this. When the Maggid finally finished davening, Reb Arele greeted his old friend. Sholem Aleichem, mein teuer Chaver Reb Ber. Sholem Aleichem, Reb Arele. Was macht ihr? Baruch Hashem, I'm doing fine. Reb Ber, if I may, I have watched you daven here for long hours. Why do you need to daven for so long? I also know all of the special kavonos, the special things that the Arizal instructed to think about during davening. I think all of those thoughts each day during davening, and it really doesn't take me that long. What is taking you so long to daven, Reb Ber? Instead of answering the question, the Maggid asked Reb Arele, So, what's new by you? What are you up to these days? Well, Reb Ber, Baruch Hashem, I spend all my time learning Torah. So how do you support your family? My wife has a store which she runs. And it brings in enough money to support our family. Once a year, there is a large fair in a nearby city. Sometime before the fair is said to begin, my wife gives me a shopping list and a bag of money.
Arala, soon is going to be the great fair. Please buy everything that's on this shopping list so that I will have the merchandise to sell during the coming year.
My travel to the fair takes a good few weeks. I get back with wagon loads of merchandise for my wife. I go straight back to learning undisturbed until the next year's fair comes around. The Maggid asked his friend, I don't understand, Reb Adele. Why do you need to spend all that time traveling to the fair, buying, and traveling back? Why don't you just sit down and picture in your mind how you are taking your horse and wagon, traveling to the fair, buying the merchandise, and coming back? That will take much quicker. Reb Adele started to laugh. Rebbe, you must be joking. I hope you realize that if I just sit and imagine doing everything in my mind, in the end, I will have no merchandise to give to my wife to sell. If I want to bring back something real, I actually have to make a real trip and buy real items, and a real trip takes time. The Maggid replied, Reb Adele, that's also the reason why it takes me so much longer to daven. Of course I can think about all kinds of ideas of Kabbalah in my mind. But if I actually want to make a real connection with Hashem, and actually change as a result of my davening, I will actually have to make a real trip. Meaning, I will have to become completely involved in my davening, in making a real connection with Hashem. That takes much longer than just thinking ideas in my head. On Rosh Hashanah, the Maggid would not blow the shofar himself. Instead, he asked his Talmud Reb Mendele Horodoker to be the Baal Toikeya, the one who blows the shofar. During the Tkiyos, the Maggid would stand beside Reb Mendele and serve as the Makri, the one who calls out each sound, Tekiya, Shvarim Trua, and so on. But one year, Reb Mendele wasn't there. So the Maggid chose another Talmud, Reb Levi Yitzchak of Barditchev, to be the Baal Toikeya instead. Reb Levi Yitzchak prepared himself for the mitzvah with fear and excitement, as he always did before doing a mitzvah. But as soon as the Maggid called out the first sound, Tekiya, something amazing happened. Reb Levi Yitzchak suddenly saw spiritual lights, ruchniistic energy that shined from the Maggid's holy Avodah. In fact, the experience was so powerful that Reb Levi Yitzchak fell to the ground in a deep faint. The Maggid was surprised. I don't know what happened to him. Every year Reb Mendele is the Baal Toikeya, and he doesn't faint like that. The Talmidim didn't know what to do. Someone had to blow the shofar, but who could do it without fainting? One of the Talmidim had an idea. Let's find a more simple person. Someone who won't be able to see the light caused by the Maggid's Avodah. That way, he won't get scared or faint. That's exactly what they did, and everything went smoothly. The Maggid usually davened alone, without a minyan. But when it came to Ein Kelekenu, he would ask someone to gather 10 people so that he could say the last parts of Shacharis with a minyan. One time, among the 10 people who were gathered was a young Talmud named Rabbi Yaakov Yitzchak Horowitz. He would later become known as the Choyze of Lublin, the seer of Lublin, because of his amazing Ruach HaKodesh. When the Maggid noticed Rabbi Yaakov Yitzchak, he said, "Find someone else to join the minyan instead, since Rabbi Yaakov Yitzchak is a batlin." In those days, the word batlin was another way of saying Talmud Chacham. They tried and tried, but couldn't find anyone else to join the minyan. In the end, they had no choice but to start davening with Rabbi Yaakov Yitzchak there. As soon as the Maggid started saying Ein Kelekenu, Rabbi Yaakov Yitzchak saw the heavenly malachim surrounding them. It was so powerful that he fainted on the spot. Everyone ran around in a panic.
Rabbi Yaakov Yitzchak fainted. We have to wake him up. Quick, bring some water. Splash it on his face.
They poured the water on Rabbi Yaakov Yitzchak, but it didn't help.
Oi, he's not waking up. Bring a super strong spice and put it by his nose. Maybe that will wake him up.
It took a very long time until they were finally able to wake him up. Seeing the commotion, the Maggid told his Talmudim, "I warned you that Rabbi Yaakov Yitzchak cannot join the minyan because he is a batlin. When I started saying Ein Kelekenu, and Rabbi Yaakov Yitzchak started seeing the malachim in Shamayim, he got so scared that he fainted. Had someone else been here instead, they wouldn't have seen anything and wouldn't have fainted." From all these stories, we see how much holy energy the Maggid put into his davening, that for people who were able to feel Kedusha, his davening was way too powerful for them to handle. But what made the Maggid's Chassidus special? Well, to understand that, we first need to know what was started by the Baal Shem Tov. The Baal Shem Tov began to bring down the deep secrets of Chassidus all the way down to our world. This needed to be done in stages so that the physical world would be able to handle these great revelations of Kedusha. The Baal Shem Tov took the first step. He would say very short teachings of Chassidus, and only the greatest tzaddikim were able to understand them. The Maggid took revealing Chassidus a step further. He began to say Chassidus more at length and more explained. By the way, Kinderlach, each Rebbe who came after the Maggid brought Chassidus down even more than the Rebbe before him. Now it is up to us to finish the job of spreading the light of Chassidus to every Jew and in every place. This will bring Mashiach, when the whole world will be filled with the knowledge of Hashem. So, back to the Maggid. The Talmidim of the Maggid used to learn and daven in the Maggid's base medrash. Because the Maggid had health problems with his feet, he needed crutches to help him walk, even before the Maggid came into the room. When the Talmidim began to hear the sound of his crutches as he came closer, they were already filled with awe of their great Rebbe, since they felt how holy he was. The Maggid would begin to say Torah, and all of the Talmidim wanted to listen to every word. But most of the Talmidim couldn't handle hearing the Torah while the Maggid was saying it. The Maggid said Torah with so much ruchniistic energy that the experience was way too much for them. Reb Aaron of Karlin would get so excited that he would get sick in the stomach and couldn't listen to the Divrei Torah. Reb Levi Yitzchak of Barditchev would become so overjoyed that the Maggid was revealing such deep Torah that he would go into a dveikus, such deep attachment to Hashem, that he couldn't focus on what the Maggid was saying. There were only 2 Talmidim that were able to control their emotions enough to be able to hear and remember what the Maggid said from beginning to end. One was the Alter Rebbe, who we will hear more about in future episodes, and the other Talmud was Reb Chaim, the Rav of Volpe. When the Maggid finished speaking, the Alter Rebbe went to where the Rav of Volpe was staying to do a chazara, a review of the Divrei Torah that the Maggid said. The other Talmidim would come to the Alter Rebbe and to the Volper to hear these Divrei Torah for the very first time, since they couldn't handle hearing it directly from the Maggid. The Maggid's friends, the other Talmidim of the Baal Shem Tov, were amazed by what the Maggid was accomplishing. When they saw how much the Maggid was doing, it inspired them to spread Chassidus even more. But how would the Maggid help people with their personal troubles? To find out, please stay tuned for the next episode of The Hair for Kids. Thank you for listening to The Hair for Kids, where we explore the fascinating lives of our Rabbeim.